I'm going to talk about heterophobia. And the reason why is because I used to live in the United States. I went on dates with lots of women in New York City. And they have a reputation for being very liberal, which really wasn't that much aware of at the time. I knew that there were conservatives and liberals, but what I didn't know is how much liberals hated conservatives. I really had no clue. And now I know that there's a lot of hatred going back and forth. So I would meet lots of women. I went on dates with tons of women. Tons and tons of women. One month I went on a date with a different woman every month. And I even went on 2 dates in the same day. I did like 30 dates in 1 month, blind dates, because my profile was extremely popular through the dating service. And a lot of women would say to me, I don't want to date a guy who's homophobic. A lot of women would say that. And at first when I would hear that, I'd be confused. I was like, why do you care? Why do you care? It's like, okay, so now I'm thinking maybe I understand the reason why. They're thinking of the extreme case of homophobia, like a guy who's homophobic. So if he sees someone who's homosexual, he's going to go enact violence against them or something. Maybe that's what they're thinking. But then you've got people who are homophobic who just have an opinion that they don't like gay people, and that's it. And so that's what I was thinking. I was saying, what do you care? Afraid, and homophobia means something. It's fear. And I was like, if someone's afraid, you don't want to be with someone who's afraid of gay people. Like if I see a gay person, and I'm afraid, then you don't want to date me. Well, you're afraid of snakes. Should I say I don't want to date someone who's afraid of snakes? So it was confusing. And you hear it the first time, and it's weird. And then you hear it from lots of women. I heard from so many women. And it's never a logical part of conversation. It's not like you go there and you say, so let's list all the people that we refuse to date. I would never go on a date with a woman and say, I'm going to tell you what I don't like about you. Or I'm going to tell you what I don't like in a person. And you know what? One of the other things, there was this dating service where you could put what you don't like about someone, and almost everything that the women wrote was completely shallow. Like they would put unibrow, you know what I mean, or can't speak English well. They would list all these things like that, and I was like, none of these are a reason to not date someone. And a small portion, the most non-shallow, the deepest they got, which was like 10% or less, was laziness. They didn't put things like violent people or someone who doesn't love others or someone who isn't interesting or someone who's stupid. It was always like someone who doesn't dress well or someone who smells or someone with long hair. It was always shallow stuff. So I'm not the type of person who goes around criticizing other people. I'm not going to go on a date and say, I don't like this people. But that's what women did. They would say, I don't date Muslims. I don't date Asians. I don't date Hispanic people. They would never say they don't date black people, but they would skip over that one. And I would say, why? Why don't you date an Asian person? Oh, because they oppress women. It was always, they oppress women. Why don't you date Muslims? They oppress women. Why don't you date Hispanics? They oppress women. It's like, Asian people oppress women? Yes. The only people that they liked were the Scandinavians. You know what I mean? So the point that I'm making is I went on all these dates, met all these women that don't want to date a guy who's homophobic. And there's going to be tons of women out there that are going to watch this video and they're going to say, you're absolutely right. I don't date a guy who's homophobic. The argument that I'm going to make is that the vast majority of women that I dated and the vast majority of women that I've met in my life, the vast majority of women that I've read their opinion on things about socializing over the internet, in magazines, on TV, in the newspaper, the vast majority of opinions I heard from other people repeating about women's opinion is that there is a vast epidemic of women who are heterophobic, which means they have a fear of men. And the list of evidence goes on and on and on and it's evident everywhere in our society, in our laws, in court, on YouTube, on TV, on Oprah, in magazines, on blogs, and the list goes on and on and on and on and on. And women have no problem going out and saying that they hate men, and that is heterophobia. There is an epidemic evident for everyone to see of heterophobia, and there isn't one for homophobia. There are people who speak out against gay people, and they're called the alt-right. And there are people who are heterophobic, and they are called women.